Hello everyone. We're getting ready to start the new Block of the Month quilt that we really don't have a name for, but for right now I'm calling it A Quilter's Life. And the first block of this quilt I chose to be a very simple block. It's called a Sawtooth Star. And you probably made a Sawtooth Star many times. The Sawtooth Star has 8 points on it, and it has a center square. For my Sawtooth Star, for all of my blocks, I'm using different whitish fabrics. This one I've got a lot of it, so you might see it in a lot of blocks. But I have a whitish fabric for the background, and then 2 different colors. One color for the center of the square, which for mine, I decided I would use a square that's made with this pretty pinkish, whitish, goldish, I don't know, nice fabric. And then these will be the star points. As you make your Sawtooth Star, you may decide that you would like to put something special in the center, and that's fine. So, just use something to do a fussy cut for your square if you like, or maybe there's something special you want to put in there. But for mine, I just chose a nice, pretty fabric that I liked. So, follow along as we make this very, I hope, simple Sawtooth Square block. Okay, I have the flying geese blocks made, and the center block is laid in the center. Corner blocks are on each end of the flying geese, and I always lay it out in front of me to make sure everything is facing the right way and it's all fine. Now I'm going to sew this corner to this geese block to this corner to make row 1. This will be sewed to here, to the center, and the other side on, that will be row 2. Row 3 is down here. Once we get these sewn, then we will sew the 3 rows together. Now the rows are sewn, so I have row 1, and when I press it, I just press with my fingers, but I press them out because that's the way they like to go. Middle row is pressed in because that's the way they want to go. And the bottom row pressed out again. This makes the seams going the opposite way and makes everybody happy when you sew them together. So now I'm going to take this, flip him over. I am going to put a pin right where these seams come together. I usually put my pin just right next to the seam, but a little bit on the right side so that it can, the needle can push this guy under right next to the seam. And the same thing here. And then I'll put a pin in the center and try to get my seam to come just shy of where that seam is going across there. Okay, so this guy is ready to sew. I will sew him, and then I will put the other one on the bottom in the same way and sew them, and our block will be almost all together. Okay, my block is sewn together. It's all ready to go into its frame. I always, after I have the block sewn together, I check the size. So I usually lay it on top of my cutting board or something and say, okay, yep, it's fine. It's 9.5 inch square. So now it's ready to make a frame for it. The frame, when it's finished, is going to look like this picture here. It's going to have, and I used a stripe fabric. This picture doesn't show it very well. And a blue fabric, blue stripe, blue squares. The directions are in your pattern. I forget how many you need. Well, you must need 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 8 squares and 8 rectangles that are, I forget the size, but I think they maybe are cut at 2 inches by 4.5. I don't know. Look at your directions in the thing. What we are going to do is what I usually do is I lay them out. Now these are batiks, so they can be laid out right sides up. And let me move this aside. I lay out 1, 2, and I put a square in between them. Just 1 square, please. Okay, and I'm going to lay out 4. So there are 4 sides to our square. So every side gets 1 of these, 1 of these, 1 of these. And then the first 2 sides get this. I usually do top, bottom, and then these guys are going to go on the sides. So they're going to have corners. So I'm going to go and I'm going to sew this to this to this, this to this to this, and then sew them onto my square. So stay. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3. Well, I have the other one under my needle right now, but they're all sewn the same way I do. It doesn't matter which way you press the center square. It might depend on your fabric, but for this it doesn't really matter. Now when we get to the bottom 2 guys, the bottom 2 edges, it will matter which way that we press. So for what I've done right now is I have just used my fingers to press that middle square out, and I'm going to take it and lay it at either one side of the block, doesn't really matter which one. I'm going to pin on each end and pin in the middle. And then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam here, and I'm going to add one to the bottom and do the same thing. 1/4 inch seam, and we'll have the top and the bottom on. What I did not say when I did this top one is it's probably best if you, when you pin the frames on, that you pin them on so that you can sew on the block side, and that way you can see where these points are going to be and make sure that you don't sew over the end of a triangle or something. I think I looked out on the first side, so I remembered on this side. And now as I'm sewing along here, I can see this is where this point is going to be. I don't want to sew over down here anywhere. Same way for this guy. All right, we're going to sew top and bottom on, and then we'll do the other. Okay, I have the top and the bottom on, and it's time for the other 2 sides. I'm still just, these want to go out. So the other 2 sides, I added a corner piece on each side, and when you add the corner piece, you're going to press them towards the center, so toward the frame. And now I am going to lay it that way. When you lay them next to your block, you will have the seams going in opposite directions so that they will sew nicely. And again, sew with the block up, so that the back of the block up, so that you can see where your edges are on any block, where you want to make sure and watch your 1/4 inch. But
these are pretty easy to sew. And we're going to do this side, and then we're going to do the other side, and then, oh, and I did guess, I don't know if I showed you, that I pressed the back of the block, I pressed these two seams of the rows open. So as I'm sewing, I am going to really watch that I sew these so that the seams stay open. It's another reason to sew on so you can see the block. And my block is finished and ready to be put on the design wall. This is block 1, a nice Sawtooth Star. This block gives you a lot of opportunities to do your own thing. In the center square, this would be a great place to put a fabulous decorative piece of fabric. You could put anything in there that you like. Our quilt is about something about life. Life is good, or it's a good life, or something like that. So maybe you have something special that you would like to put in the center of your first block. But it's all done, and it should measure now 12.5 inches. And all of the blocks will have the same type of frame. Now, you don't have to use stripes, but I would suggest that your frames all be very similar so that the design will look better in the end.